Welcome back to the I2 podcast. So excited that you're here with us, and man, thankful and excited to sit down with my boy. We go way back to the college days. Anthony Tolliver's here with us today. AT, what's up, bro? How you doing?
I'm great, man. How are you?
I am doing good. Man, it is good to see your face. We're looking at each other on this screen that we are hoping doesn't freeze up based on some technical difficulties we had last time. But man, we go back to college at Creighton University playing basketball together. That's where I first got to know Anthony, and to see your journey, 13 years now in the NBA, to see what God has done in your life, in my mind, is truly amazing. And so I want to, just talk about your story a little bit, and would love to have you just talk about, how'd you get to where you are today? 13 years as an NBA veteran, starting out at Creighton University. Just give us a little window into your life.
Yeah, man. Hey, it's been pretty crazy. Especially on the basketball journey side. Just going back even before Creighton. Not being even the best player on my high school team. I've just always had to work and always had to continuously prove myself.
Your high school team was pretty tough. Y'all had a good high school team.
We were very stacked. That shows you I wasn't the best player on my team, but I still went to a Division I school, and we had multiple guys go to Division I school. So, going even through college, I definitely had my moments, and definitely had, some years were better than others. But you can even make an argument that I was maybe never the best player on any of those teams, right? Like as far as skill set and even points per game and all that different stuff. Like, so it's all been, my journey's always been about persistence. It's always been about just knowing my role, right? Yep. And absolutely busting my tail to help my team win. And so, going back, and getting into the NBA, a lot of guys have to make a huge adjustment. They go from being a man in high school, probably being the man in college, to I'm not the man no more unless you're the man, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you got to play a role, right?
Right.
So a lot of these guys, over the years, I've seen some of them more talented, some of them more athletic than me, some of them, even maybe more of a complete player than me, right? But guess what? They don't know how to fulfill a role on a team. They just know how to be the man, right? So it's something that I've already learned a ton from my own journey on how to attack life, right?
Yeah.
And just knowing your role in just learning, hey, you don't have to be the absolute best. Like, you want to strive to be the best, but you want to be the best version of you.
That's good.
Comparing yourself and all that stuff to other people, it doesn't get you anywhere.
Bro, I love that point. I never thought about that before. You talked about even the teams you played on, maybe never being the best player, but finding your role, which is so cool. Cause I mean, you're 13 years now in the NBA, and everybody wants to be the superstar. Nobody wants to just be a role player. But man, if you can find your role, you can find yourself in some pretty cool situations and really be the best version of yourself, and probably do things that a lot of other people couldn't do. I think sometimes people look at you and probably others in the NBA and they're like, man, they had it easy. Man, they, their path to get to where they are. But I know your path wasn't easy. And whether it was finding your role, I think of even just your mother and her passing and what she instilled into your life. Talk about that, like what your mom instilled into you, and maybe even just like the challenges that you faced when she passed, which was right after college.
Yeah. I mean, just going back through life, she taught me how to be a man, right? Like, and that sounds kind of weird, right? Like, your mom taught you how to be a man, but it's so true. I mean, I've always had a good relationship with my father, but I didn't grow up in a household with my father. So a lot of the nuances of life, I didn't learn from him. I didn't learn actually any nuances of life from him. It was all from her. So to me, just learning how to, make a dollar stretch, learn the importance of saving and learn the importance of investing. She was a teacher, which, teachers don't make very much money at all.
Right.
But she always figured out ways to, buy rental properties and different stuff. I'm just like, how are you doing this?
Wow.
I don't know, but she would just figure it out. And just and I think that's where a lot of my entrepreneurial spirit comes from, is from my mom. And I feel like if she would have had more resources, she could have been, a pretty successful entrepreneur, because she was, pretty diligent, and pretty smart with how she spent her money. So yeah, I could do a whole podcast about the fact that lady had, but I was 23 whenever she passed. And I sometimes I look back and I'm like, I feel like I was shortchanged, right? But then other times I look back and I say, the amount of stuff that I learned from her in 23 years surpasses a lifetime of things that other people learn from their parents 50, 60, 70 years. So, at the end of the day, yes, do I wish she was still here? Of course, right?
Right.
But she gave me all the tools I needed to live a phenomenal life and to have a lot of success in life. So, definitely shouts to her for that.
Man, I can totally see in what you're describing, like her imprint on your life to where you are today, because there's the basketball side, there's the entrepreneurial side, which I want to talk about in a second. But I want to just maybe go back to the basketball side. You get done with Creighton, you go, every kid's dream is to play in the NBA. Your journey, you played overseas, you had a few 10-day contracts. Like, how did you finally get in? How have you made it for 13 years in the league?
One day at a time, brother. It's been pretty crazy. Just just learning to adapt, right? Given 13 years playing overseas, playing in the G League for 3 different teams, playing in the NBA with 10 different teams, played in Germany, played in Turkey. So I think as far as the amount of jerseys I put on is about, 17 different jerseys.
Wow.
In 13 years. And something like that. It's around that. I got to go through, So by the way, I'm going to be writing a book soon. I don't know.
Come on, man.
Do that. But, and its basis is going to be around knowing your role. Right. So what we talked about earlier. So, but getting back to my question, or to the question, with that being said, about 17 different teams, 17 different jerseys. And so you take that, and every single one of them, I'm looking back in my career, I don't think I've ever had a coach. No, Van Gundy. I think Van Gundy is the only coach I've had for more than one season.
Wow.
I'm just thinking about it.
Wow.
Yeah. So think about that. So that's 16 different systems, different schemes, different, ways they do things, structures, cultures, everything. Right.
Yep.
So for me, the biggest thing I probably learned in my 13-year career so far is adaptation. Right.
Yep.
Learning how to adapt to my environment, but not letting the environment change me too. Right.
That's good.
That's another thing is there's been so many different types of environments. You can be a chameleon, right? Where you change and you're exactly like everything else around it. Or you can adapt and change, to fit the system, but not, have the, what I'm saying? Have it change you. I'm not changing who I am, my morals, the things that I stand for. But I will find a way to make this work. That's what I've learned how to do in pretty much any environment.
Which I feel like, you're one of the most adaptable guys that I know with the teams you've played on. You have the ability to walk into a variety of environments and like, it doesn't phase you. You're like, man, this is who I am. It's cool if the environment's like this. I'm going to engage it. I'm going to work and walk by people, but I'm not going to change who I am. And I think like part of your track record, which is so cool, is the relationships that you've built. Obviously, you've been who you are. And as a result, you've been able to build all these relationships in all these different places that in different ways, I mean, it's just all a part of the unique thumbprint that God has placed on your life, which is so cool. I say this, man, I want that book, Know Your Role, Find Your Role, becoming the best role player you can be, like, because that's what you, like, that's your story. That's what you embody in such a powerful way.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I think that whenever it's all said and done, are you familiar with a guy named Ryan Leak?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So he's going to help me through this process. You know, I don't know if did you remember he was at Iron Sharpens Iron. I don't know if I
connected with him the first time. Yeah.
First time. Yeah. Yeah. So he's a good buddy of mine. And he's, wrote multiple books, and he's actually on me about, hey bro, we got to do this. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so just giving me that push, right. Just giving me that push. So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be, it's funny. I went over the synopsis for kind of what I feel like, the book can be about. And it's funny. He was like, all the stuff you just told me, he's like, that's 3 or 4 books.
Well, I think, I think we talk about purpose all the time. And like, even on this podcast, it's helping people understand their purpose. God's given you influence for the purpose of impacting the world. And I believe that everyone's message comes out of their purpose. And so like when you talked about knowing your role, it's not just a book, it's not just a message. Like that message comes out of the purpose and the role that God has had you play over these years. So it's so much bigger than even just a book, man. That's your car that you carry around, and you get to help people in every season understand what their role is. Let me ask you this. I know you haven't written the book yet, but somebody's listening and we're trying to help them understand their role, whether it's at work, on a basketball team, wherever it is. What are some of the things that you would share with them to say, hey, this is how you can know your role and play that role to the best of your ability?
Well, first of all, you have to find, your niches, right? Those things that you have the ability to do maybe better than others. So you kind of have to start with the things that, God's blessed you with, your natural talents, and also the talents that you've developed over the years. And so now if you're talking about in your job, maybe you are, the most attentive, note taker and everything, what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, like maybe whatever those details of who you are and what you are, who you have become, you have to start there. And once you know those things, then developing your role from there. So I use basketball as an example, right? For me, I've always had shooting touch, right?
Yeah.
Always had shooting touch, even going back through middle school and high school. I led my high school team, even though we had one of the best shooting point guards in the country. I led our high school in 3-point percentage by like quite a bit. So I've always had the ability to shoot. But guess what? I got to Creighton, and I wouldn't. My role was not to shoot threes.
Right.
So guess what? I played that role. But going back to it, like using basketball, as an example, I've always had shooting ability. Always had this. Always had the ability to think the game. And so I'm like, okay, but defense is a want, right? Like you just gotta want to stop somebody. You gotta want to like do the dirty work, take a charge, and do the things that no one else really wants to do.
Right.
So I was like, all right, well, I know that if I can shoot and I can play defense, I can play on any team in the NBA because every team wants shooters and defenders, right?
Right.
It's like every office, every company, Fortune 500 company needs salesmen, needs marketing people, needs like you can think of roles that everybody needs, right?
Right.
And so, just like finding those things and then just becoming experts at them. So now over the course of the 13 years, I knew I had good shooting touch, but then it's like, well, now I got to be not just be a decent shooter. I got to be top 5, top 10 type shooter, right? And if I do that, then hey, the defense is just going to be icing on the cake. And then I use my brain. You know what I'm saying? So you just start kind of like formulating it, but it all starts with what you're naturally talented with. Like, what has God given you that you can use in whatever job, whatever role you're looking at filling? My role would never be to be a shot blocking, high jumping, whatever. I can't do that.
Right.
So You just got to find what you got and then work with that.
It's not just what you want, what you dream about. It's how's God created me? What do I naturally have? And then what can I combine, put the work in to continue to get better at those things?
Yep.
Well, one of the things that I've always loved about you is like, you maximize the opportunities that you've been given. You really, I think, leverage those, whether it's an opportunity, a 10-day contract that, man, you go hard and it leads to, a bigger contract. But I feel like in the NBA, you've leveraged your platform and you've started businesses, you've given back to the community. I'd say for me, when I see guys in your position, my mindset is like, man, you have a platform, like you have influence, leverage it. And you do that as well as anybody I've ever seen. Talk about that. Like, what's your mindset with the platform that God has given you in this season of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I have a platform. I don't have, maybe some of the same size platform as, some of these other basketball players and football players and baseball players that the more notoriety type guys. But I know for a fact that there's a certain faction of people who I have a vast amount of influence over. So for me, I've always, and I truly believe this with 100% of my heart, is I feel like God blessed me to be in the NBA, to have this platform because, in part, because he knew my heart. Like, he knew that from day one, my intentions have always been pure, and they've always been about utilizing my platform to impact change and positivity and to grow the kingdom of God ultimately. Right.
That's good.
And that's from day one. It doesn't mean that I've been this perfect saint of a person, right? Like, done some dumb crap in my life. And, but, just like, like most of us. Right. But, but at the same time, the things that I've always thought about and wanted to represent and accomplish with being in the NBA have never been selfish and materialistic or worldly things. Of course, I like nice things. I mean, we have a nice house, we have a couple nice cars, right? Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, the overabundance of it has always been about, when it comes to finances, it's always been about, okay, how can we bless others? How can we do things for the kingdom? How can we help? How can we support ministries? How can we do this, right? So that's the financial part. The platform part has always been, I mean, I've been consistent for 13 years. I've used my platform on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. 90% of the stuff I post is encouragement and Bible verses and biblically based life advice, I guess. And I don't take credit for any of it. I mean, it's literally things I read and I'm like, this is encouraging, I'm going to pass it along. So I'm not an originator, but I'm just a vessel, right? I feel like I just look at it like that. I read something that I feel like is super encouraging or super impactful, and I don't just say, oh, that's awesome, I'm going to keep it to myself. No, I'm going to put it on every single one of my social platforms that people follow me on. And, like I said, I don't have millions and millions and millions of people following me, but at the same time, I do have thousands, and those thousands, within those thousands, I've influenced some pretty crazy influential people,
right,
that who ultimately have crazy influence. So
right,
it's like,
right.
you never know. You never
Right.
know. You never know how God's going to
Well,
use you.
and that's what I was just thinking. I mean, you talk about the influence, on the thousands and people who follow you, but you got guys like Lecrae who have shouted you out in his book and talked about the influence you had on his life. You had who was it recently? Damian Lillard, when you were playing for Portland, shouted you out. Steph Curry, who you had relationship early on in both of your careers. Like you've had the ear and the influence of some of these guys.
Right.
That speaks a lot. I mean, in the NBA, you're what is it? The Players Committee, the Players Association Committee?
Yep. I'm a secretary treasurer of the NBPA. Yep.
I mean, that's a big deal. And again, I commend you because I've seen you in whatever platform God has given you. I feel like you have intentionally tried to use it to advance the kingdom and to impact other people's lives. You and Jess, I mean, you guys have been generous on so many levels to Abide and other organizations. What's kind of your mentality as you guys think about giving, as you think about stewarding the resources that God has given you?
It's just, it's funny. Me and Jess have always had this like connection of like being on the same page.
Yep.
When it comes to, being led to give or being led to support anything or something, we usually go to the other, person and, kind of ask them what's their initial thoughts. A lot of the times, even if we're not both feeling the exact same cause or whatever, let's say blue cross, whatever, like it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Anything, right? Any giving situation, but somehow, some way, we almost always end up around about the same like area of like giving. So whether it be $200,000 or $2,000, so it's not like, oh, we always give between 2,000 and 5,000. So
right,
well, it's not that hard to get close in that range. But it's like, it's unbelievable, and that's kind of how we confirm a lot of times. Is like, all right, well, if we're on the same page, if both of our hearts are in the same exact place when it comes to this particular organization, then that's what we need to do, right? And that's kind of becomes our confirmation. If we're off, we're way off, and we're not on the same page, we, sometimes we still will. Like if like I'm not feeling it and she's just gung-ho about it, I'm just like, you know what, you're led to do that, you do it, right? But we try to consult with each other when it comes to giving, because ultimately it's our resources that God's blessed us with, and so we want to be good stewards with it and do with it what we feel led to do. And so that's another thing with entrepreneurship and with business and stuff that I do outside of basketball is I do it because ultimately, like I have my dream home, right? I have my dream life, and it's going to be supported. We've put in measures in place for financial things with NBA and other things that, we're going to be fine,
right.
So now it's like, so the question is, why continue to build businesses? Why continue to grind and do all this different stuff? And the answer is ultimately, it'd be cool to go on a couple extra vacations and stuff like that. That's for sure. That would be more so just, hey, this is a reward for the hard work.
Right.
That's really, like, honestly, that's like the only thing that me and my wife want, extra vacation, right? Like we don't want a bunch of extra cars. We don't want 12 houses. None of that stuff appeals to us. It's like vacations for us and our family, and like experiences for the kids, and being able to do mission trips, and stuff like that, and be able to support it and not worry about, oh, I got to go, necessarily, okay, I got to go find money or raise money to go do it. Like, no, if we're led to do it, we can just do it, right? And that's kind of where I've always pictured, from a financial standpoint, is, hey, I just want our family to be in a position where we can vacation, right? And to have those experiences, but also anything anything we feel God is leading us to be a part of, to support, we want to be able to do it full-fledged, like without even thinking about it, without even like, it's like, oh, like I just had like God, I feel like God just told me, or I feel like the Holy Spirit's leading me to fully support this person I've never met before.
Wow.
And like they need a house. I want to be able to buy that person a house.
Wow.
And like not even think twice about it, not have to check the bank account and be like, wow, oh man, I don't know if we can afford it. That's my vision. Like that's kind of where I want to be financially, where we can just literally just live a life of just like giving and like of servitude and like I said, vacations. That's it.
Hey, come on, man. I'll say this too. You guys live so simple. Like, I mean, you really don't live this crazy lifestyle. You've been so frugal and you've stewarded your money the right way. You've led with generosity. You've lived out exactly what you're talking about. And I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a vacation or two every once in a while. Like you can only give what you have, and so you got to fuel yourself up. You know, you got to take some time for yourself. But you guys have lived that out. Just real quickly, I want to talk about some of your business ventures because you have invested. You've been a part of some business. I got my Active Face shirt on, my 3 Active Face shirts, my favorite shirts that I love to wear. So you've got that. I mean, you've done some other business. How many different business ventures have you been a part of over the last, I don't know, 10 plus years? That might be too many to count.
Well, it's roughly 20.
Okay. Yeah.
And that kind of includes some companies that are more passive and some are more active. And so I'll just give you a quick run through of the more active ones. Obviously Active Faith, I was one of the original founders of that. Just recently, the more recent company that I just was co-founder of is it's called Players TV, a new media company that we're trying to, have be basically the first ever player-owned media company. And so just trying to, really empower athletes of all sports and all ages and, all professional athletes to be a part of this and have ownership in it and grow it collectively. I've invested in real estate. So I have a real estate company. Been doing that since literally day one. I have a fishing company, specifically a kids fishing company, that we literally, have a product in pretty much all the major retailers across the country.
So cool.
I actually invested in some Scooters Coffees. So obviously you are familiar with that, being an Omaha guy. Got some Scooters Coffees down here in Dallas, and we're going to try to expand that out down here. All kinds of stuff.
What do you look for? Like when you're going into investing, like, I mean, what do you look for to make these deals? Is it relationships you have? Is it a business that you're interested in? Like what are some of your number one criteria?
It's the people. And of course the business has to make sense too. I'm a numbers guy. I'm a finance guy. So people come to me with a vision. I'm like, oh, that's an awesome idea. What do the numbers say? Right. Yeah. And even then numbers can kind of say what you want them to say too. Right. So you have to have a realistic brain, right? Like, all we have to do, favorite Shark Tank thing is all we have to do is get 1% of the market and we're $1 billion company. Right? All right. Like, okay, if it was just that easy, wouldn't there be 100 other ones just like you, right?
Right.
So, I mean, it's just a discernment thing as well. I'm definitely an open-minded, outside the box thinker. I mean, majority of the businesses I've invested in have been like my closest friends. But I've also, believe it or not, invested in businesses of complete strangers. Wow. And not say complete strangers as in like, hey, I know you don't know me, but like on Twitter, like I don't do that very often.
Someone's gonna reach out to you.
Really,
Hey,
only did that one time, but it was like, you know,
just made
it's just one of
sense.
those things. Like I just stay open, right? Like I don't. If somebody has something to say or something to, like, you know, an idea, I got an idea to run by you. Okay, I'll listen to it. I hear it out, because you never know. Like you really never know where the absolute best ideas are going to come from. I mean,
good.
to tell you the truth about the guy that I invested in through Twitter. So he hit me up, and for some reason I was like, all right, cool. I'll just listen to the guy. He's like, hey, I would love to just like meet you. I think he sent me some initial information, and it sounded cool, right? And I was like, all right, cool. He's like, so let's meet up. I'm like, cool. So I was playing for the Minnesota Timberwolves the first time around. So this was a long time ago, 9 years ago, right? Or 8 years ago or so. And long story short, I ended up kind of giving him some seed money, getting him off. He was still in college, right?
Wow.
Still in college. But he had this idea, and I was like, you know what? I like you. I like this idea. You know, whatever. Let's do it, right? Wasn't a ton of money. It was just like, you know what? It's cool. So it was. I'll just give you a quick little synopsis of it. It's an idea for a TV show called Holier Than Thou. Right? It was like, you know, a faith-based show talking about having these different backgrounds of different faiths coming into one house, kind of like Big Brother style, right? So I thought about the dynamics of that and like how cool that could really be. And so it started there. Now, fast forward to today, I literally just had a call with him 2 days ago, right? He's working at a production company in Minneapolis. Wow. And he's about to pitch a spinoff of that show that I invested in. So one of the spinoffs, he's about to pitch it to HGTV and some of these other shows or some of these other platforms. And we also might end up, ironically, bringing that show to Players TV. So, so it's like, you never know, right? Like, it's crazy how it all, how it's all kind of coming full circle a little bit, but it's, but yeah, I mean, I don't have like an industry that I stick in. I literally I'm an opportunistic type of guy, and I just either it makes sense or it doesn't to me. And if it does, it's something that I try to jump into.
Yeah. Well, one last thing I'd love to talk about when it comes to your influence is, in the last couple of years, you started something called Iron Sharpens Iron. And you've been getting guys together and having men's retreats and keeping up with guys. Like, talk about why you started that, just kind of how it got started, and just a little bit about that.
So, piggybacking on some of the stuff I was talking about earlier was, hey, I want to be in a position to be able to, without even thinking about it, kind of go in the direction where God leads me, right?
Yeah.
So now here's the deal. In this particular situation, God had to use people around me to push me into it, right? Because it was something, I thought about, I was like, oh, it seems like a pretty cool idea. But I don't have time for it, right? I convinced myself it wasn't, I don't have time for it. I got this going on, blah, blah, blah. Well, a buddy of mine who, Richard Perdomo, you met him at the men's retreat. He's just, he's a guy who I met in college. We weren't even friends in college, but something happened. We ended up reconnecting when I was in the NBA. And, he tells the story better than I do, but, because he's the one who got influenced by me, right?
Right.
So I influenced him in a heavy way, never one time ever pushing him towards Christ or anything like that, or shoving it down. But it was just always, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I represent. And, if you like it, cool, let's talk about it. But it's not something I'm going to just, hit you over the head with. And so he was highly influenced with how I live my life and my integrity and the things that I did. And it led him to Christ. And so ironically, he was the one who ended up kind of pressing me into this leadership role of getting guys together, right? It started out, the original Iron Sharpens Iron was in DC. We went to DC for a event called Reset.
Yeah.
And that was in 2016. And I didn't want to do it, right? I was like, nah. I was like, I'm going to invite guys. Guys are going to talk crap and say, yeah, I'll come. And then they're going to all cancel.
Right.
It's going to be like 3 of us there. I'm like,
right.
I'm not about to do that. I'm not about to fly across the country. But long story short, he's like, bro, let's just do it. I was like, all right, bro, let's do it. So I invited probably 14 guys and 12 guys showed up.
Wow.
Flew across the country, drove across the country, whatever it may be. They all came. And it was like, I was like, holy crap. Like, all right. Well, it started out there in DC, right? The event was like a big event. It wasn't my event. It was somebody else's. I was just the guy who brought everybody together. Well, it got cut short. We ended up, doing dinner that night and walking around the streets of DC. And it was amazing because if you were an outsider looking in at our group, you would think that we were all best friends going back to high school or whatever it would be. But it was a mix. It was a modge podge of different guys from all across the country that had never met each other before that morning. And we were all fellowshipping and just enjoying ourselves and having a ton of fun. And so I was like, man. And then we ended up, just grabbing a drink, just hanging out and just talking. And in those talks it became this vulnerable time, this time of fellowshipping and things that like I'd never experienced in my entire life.
Wow.
With anybody else. And I'm just like, man, there's something here. There's something here. Like we got to do this again.
Yeah.
And we left there saying we got to get back together and do this again. Well, 2 years later, because the following summer, I was trying to look for another event. Right. I was looking for something like Reset. I was like, because I thought that's the way it had to go.
Right.
And I couldn't find anything. It just didn't work. And so then the following summer, Richard was like, we have to do it again. So I was like, all right, cool. So I took a leadership role. I said, you know what? I'm in a position where I can afford this. Right. I can actually do something myself where I just pay for everything. Guys, just show up. Right. Just show up. I had no clue what I was getting into. I had no clue what I was doing. Not a clue. But I was like, you know what? Like, let's just see what happens. And that first Iron Sharpens Iron ended up being obviously you were there. The first official one was just an unbelievable experience. An unbelievable experience for not just myself, but for every man that came. And it really put to the forefront of just that we don't have these spaces to be vulnerable. And so for us, for me, it was just like, okay, let's go do this. Let's go do this. And so, so now it became, all right. So last year we did it again. It was maybe even better in some regards. The way it all played out, guys were even more comfortable, maybe even more open. And now, as we've talked, it's like people are saying, how are we going to be able to expand this? Because it's not right. We can't keep this to ourselves. There's other men who could benefit from this. And so even having those talks have been expanding it and making it grow. God's really using it. And I just, once again, just trying to be a conduit and trying to be open to following however he wants to do it. Because for me, it's not about me. It's not about, me getting any credit. Matter of fact, I prefer not to ever get any credit for any of this. Right. Even in the future, if this grows to be a 10,000 member Iron Sharpens Iron group, that would be great, because that means 10,000 men are really, going after God, going after living the right way. But, I don't ever want this to be about me or, starting it, because without Richard, this thing doesn't get started. Right. Without other men who continuously encourage me to do whatever I do, like there's this, it never happens. Right. So,
but it's so cool, because like I feel like that's how God works sometimes. And then we get the opportunity to either say yes or no, God, I'm too busy right now. I'll wait till later. And I feel like you continually say yes. I mean, I'm just thinking, bro, through this conversation, you're a husband, you're a father, you're a 13-year MBA veteran. You got 20 plus businesses over the last 10, 13 years. You're basically running Iron Sharpens Iron, which is, I mean, I don't know what it is, 40, 50 plus guys that you're not only having an event every year, but you're keeping those guys connected. You got the players TV, you got the NBA committee. I mean, you talk about leveraging what God has given you. You are getting the most out of everything that God has given you. And like, I hope anybody that's listening, that's the encouragement is man, God's called you to play a role. He's given you something. Let's squeeze everything out of it that we can. Let's use it all. We got one life to live. And then let's leave the results in God's hands.
Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, that's what it's all about. And for me, remember at the Iron Sharpens Iron, you came to I have a big theme that I kind of bring to the table every year. And then the rest of the stuff is what everybody else brings. But my big theme the first year was posterity over prosperity. So what I have to do, and I have to continuously fight the battle of not seeking prosperity over posterity, and making sure that I stay focused on my wife. We went on a little date today because I said, I've been way too busy and I've been doing all this other stuff and we haven't done anything to connect. So I put all that stuff to the side and said, okay, this afternoon, until my afternoon phone calls, this 2.5 hours, we're going to go eat lunch. We're going to go to the street farm,
Good job, bro.
And then, yeah, man, but it's just, it has to be intentional, right? It has to be intentional. And with my kids and just making sure I'm intentional, because I could easily I could go through 2 or 3 weeks. And if I just like stayed focused on businesses and my responsibilities outside of my family, I could be gone. Like it would just be like 2 or 3 weeks done, right? Easily, without even thinking about it. So every single day, I just try to make sure I have intentional time, dedicated to them, because they are my first ministry, and so all this other ministry stuff is great, but if I don't have my first ministry in line, then I got my priorities out of whack.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Cool. I just helped 10,000 men. Well, that's great, but I just got a divorce and my kids hate me. The freak, that don't matter. That
right.
The 10,000 men still matter.
Right.
But no, my wife and my kids matter more at this juncture. Right.
Yep.
Just making sure I just keep those things in line. It's literally a daily thing for me to just make sure that I keep those things in line. So
I love that, bro. The word intentional, man, you live that out. The word intentional, you're intentional about using your time, your platform, your resources. I mean, even today, taking the time, I know you had phone calls, you had a date with your wife, but setting aside some time so we can get together, talk. I believe that people are going to be encouraged just by hearing your story, by your life. I pray that people would be intentional about finding their role and really lean into those gifts and those passions and the story that God has been telling and maximize it. Man, do everything you can to get better and to grow. And ultimately, again, God's the one who takes care of all the results. We just have to be faithful with what he's given us. So, bro, love you. Love your wife, your family. And just appreciate you taking some time encouraging people. Hey, if anybody wants to either follow you, social media, find out what you're up to, what's the best way for them to follow you?
Yeah, Instagram's Tolliver44. And Twitter, I think, is the same thing, Tolliver44. And Facebook's just Anthony Tolliver. Just
cool.
Those are the 3 things that I use the most. Mainly Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, some. But yeah, man. Like if you want to get some encouraging words here and there, and every once in a while I'll post some pretty funny memes. But
hey,
it's all clean.
It's all clean. Hey, I love following you because you always got scriptures. You're always sharing good stuff there. Encourage anybody to go follow. We'll be waiting for that book that you'll be putting out here in the next couple of years. And just honestly, all the stuff that God will continue to allow you to create and partner and put out. Excited about that. So thanks, bro. Appreciate you. Hey, just if you want to check out this podcast, you can go to our website, abideomaha.org, or you can go wherever podcasts are being shared. We say it every time. You don't have to do anything, just like my man AT said today, but God has called you to do something. Find out where he's giving you influence and use that influence to impact the world around you. Thanks for listening.